Hi, everybody. I'm Richmond Times Dispatch meteorologist Sean Sublette, and I'm joined with Jim Duncan, longtime chief meteorologist at NBC 12 here in Richmond. Jim, thanks for joining me. We just want to talk. Yeah, we just want to talk a little bit about what's coming up. It's Friday afternoon. The storm is still about 48 hours away, and I think the guidance has done a reasonably good job up to this point in catching the larger scale feature of the storm. But as you and I were discussing earlier, now that we're getting into the shorter range, a lot of the nuances are starting to make us more concerned about ice, especially from 95 back to the front range of the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Yeah, it's that wedge, the infamous wedge of cold air that hangs in the lower layers of the atmosphere. So that is the concern. And Sean, you mentioned the bigger medium range models, the global models are great leading up to this, but now we get the higher res models coming in. So, and we were discussing this afternoon, you and I chatted about some of the differences in those models and the temperature profiles and such. So there is that concern, I think, with how much of the freezing rain, more so than the snow for Richmond. Now, West is a different story, but it's going to be a significant impact system,
statewide. But as you and I know, doing weather in Virginia for this long, it's never the same everywhere. I mean, I think the Wakefield office has already put out the winter storm watch just for the counties immediately to the west of the metro area. Louisa, Goochland down to Amelia, Nottoway. So those areas I think are greatest risk for the icing. And then you go farther west, that's where the big snow is still going to be. One of the things I think, and I hate to squash people's dreams here, but it's not going to be a lot of snow in Richmond at all. I mean, it's probably going to be a little bit of slush. I'm kind of envisioning an inch or so of slush, and that's it. But I hate to get people excited or burst their bubbles, but it's less and less likely there's going to be, a fun level of snow in Richmond.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be that excitable snow for the first hour or two.
Yeah.
Oh wow, this would be the Sunday early afternoon whenever it arrives here. But yeah, that's the thing. Everybody, you hear the drumbeat of the snowstorm coming, but for Richmond, this part of the state, it's more nuanced and complicated than that. So we can talk about all of those details. And what we've been looking at.
That's the ironic thing. I was looking at some of the guidance this morning and for the weather geeks out there looking at up at the 500 millibar level, how tightly, the thing is almost cut off and it's almost driving the surface low right up into here. Which is why I'm a little bit less worried than you about ice for immediate Richmond.
Right.
But as we always say, every time you think the cold air is going to give way, you're wrong. You need to wait 3 or 4 more hours. Yep. But the other thing that I think we haven't had a chance to talk a lot about is the wind. We had a lot of wind with that system last Monday, and there's going to be wind with this one. My sense is that the wind in Richmond isn't going to get bad until we start getting a kind of that convective element when everything does change back over to rain, and it rains for 3 or 4 hours before it all ends during the pre-dawn hours of Monday. Right. But yeah, I'm worried. And then again, farther west is where I think where the news making part of this system is going to be that front range of the Blue Ridge to I-95.
Yeah. And it does look, and the tricky part is, and you mentioned I'm kind of looking for more of the freezing rain, that we're at a little bit of difference on the timing on that. But what I've been looking at on and you mentioned that 500 millibar cutoff low, that also that confluence aloft over New England, where you have that, that big ridge of high pressure that keeps the cold air damming in place, that does progress off to the east. And so what that does is kind of push that high pressure ridge east of New England and more into the ocean. So that allows the warmer air to come in. So that in combination with the surface winds you mentioned picking up, Sean, once it's rain, that easterly component of the surface winds off the ocean should bring in some warm air as well. So that is what really are the two confounding factors, how quickly we warm up,
Yeah. And
You may
the
very, very well will be onto this in terms of a quicker warm up. Because if that ridge breaks down quickly, then it would happen pretty
yeah,
quickly.
agreed.
Yeah.
But yeah, to emphasize, not much snow here in Richmond. Going farther west, it will change in a hurry as you head westward out 64 or Route 60, 360. It will change very dramatically, very quickly. The other thing that I think we haven't talked as much about is the wind, and then just a quick drive eastward from here as we get into the tidal York, the tidal James, the Western Shore, the Chesapeake. There will be some tidal flooding, I expect as well.
Yep. Absolutely, that onshore wind flow. I mean, look what happened the last storm. And they had Jeff Work with the Weather Service in Wakefield. He lives down close to the coast, and he said they had wind gusts, 80 some mile per hour gusts near the Chesapeake Bay from the last storm. And so that is, as that storm kind of redevelops off, this time it'll be a little bit more east or west rather. So yeah, winds are a big issue, especially along the coast, and the tidal issues too. So
yeah, that's one of the things I think about. Because I will be the first to admit most of my forecasting has been farther inland in my career.
Me too.
So I have not had to do a lot of tidal forecasting, but just this much onshore wind and looking at some of the guidance with the tidal forecast and the timing on that would suggest at the time of high tide, which looks like it's Sunday night, is when the tidal flooding risk is highest on the James and the lower York, and certainly on the Chesapeake itself.
Yeah. So we want to just encourage everybody. The National Weather Service out of Wakefield does a lot of great tidal stuff, and they issue those coastal alerts. So go to their website, just Google AKQ NWS, and you go to the coastal page, and it'll give you all that tidal information too. So yeah, and it's updated with the warnings and advisories because there's a lot of nuances down there near the coast.
So we've got, it takes over the state on Sunday from south to north. Toward Interstate 81, the Blue Ridge, it's mostly snow, some ice, and we get a tiny bit of snow, ice, and then rain here in Richmond. And in between, those areas on the Piedmont, probably at the greatest risk of ice and ultimately power outages. It's windy. But to emphasize, it's probably not doing it when you first wake up in the morning Sunday. And by the time you wake up Monday morning, it's done. So this really is the showtime is Sunday, as it were. We're kind of.
Do we have time? You want to talk about La Nina at all and how this plays in?
I mean, we can, sure. Why not? I mean, it's funny because I think we were in such a classic La Nina pattern with the main storm track westward from the Appalachians for a while. And now it's like you and I were talking, it's like, it's still kind of that way, but everything is shifted over 10 or 15 degrees of longitude. We've got these things digging now in the east. They're just hooking back a little farther to the east than they had before.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody thinks La Nina necessarily means a warm, mild winter. And we've kind of hit that narrative, I think, maybe in the media a little bit in terms of communicating how La Nina winters shake out, but they can go either way.
Yeah.
And as this particular kind of storm track is actually fairly typical in a La Nina winter, and it's pretty difficult to predict too. So
yeah, and one of the things we try to remind people is that La Nina or El Nino, they tend certain things, but they don't guarantee certain things. Different flavors of all of those climate oscillations. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get a big X or a Y during the course of a winter. I mean, December was the warmest December on record nationally, and we had third warmest December on record here in Virginia. But, once the system kicks out first of next week, a lot of next week is a little bit below normal. I mean, it's not going to be bitter, but it is going to be a little bit below normal. Normal high this time of year is mid 40s, normal low, mid upper 20s. So it's going to be a little colder than normal, but there's still an absence of a big league kind of cold where it's consistently 10, 15, 20 degrees below normal.
Right. And you, by the way, you posted some good, and you had an interview. Was it with a NASA scientist?
Yeah, an astronomer with NASA. We talked about the report that came out last week. Sixth warmest year on record globally. So the other five warmest years on record globally were all within the last decade. It's one of those things I like to remind people is just because the planet's warming doesn't mean it's not going to be cold sometimes.
Right.
It's never going to snow again, because that still happens. But when you start, integrating it or averaging all out over the course of multiple years and decades, you do start to see a warming signal.
Yeah. And you have a lot of, expertise in terms of understanding of all of that and following the science. And so just want to kind of let folks know that you have been posting some really good stuff on RTD
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate
about that. So,
and retirement going well otherwise for you, I'm assuming?
so far, so good. As soon as I'm done here, I'm just going to, chill out and, relax.
Enjoy your coffee and realize that you don't have to go on the air at 4 o'clock in the morning on Monday like some people do.
So have fun with that.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I don't either. It's a wonderful opportunity to have here to do things digitally and kind of set your own schedule. So it's nice. But
and of course, if people don't realize, you were in Roanoke for many years.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the Roanoke Lynchburg market for about 20 years, a little bit at NBC, a little bit at ABC there. Met some wonderful people in that part of the Commonwealth. So it's good to be back home in Richmond, but it's always good to keep my eye on the Commonwealth. It's wonderful. It's great to be home. But just to reemphasize, don't look for that much snow in Richmond. You got windswept rain and flooding at the coast. You got a lot more snow farther toward, I-81, certainly US 29, some sleet there, and be mindful for power outages. And if you don't got to go anywhere on Sunday, don't. That's kind of, I think, the big overlying messages.
Exactly.
All right.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks everybody for joining us. Take care, everyone, and be safe in the storm.